The snow didn't arrive gently. It came like a wall. One moment the city lights still blinked beneath the clouds, and the next, everything was swallowed, streets, signals, sounds, buried under roaring white chaos. That was the night Ethan Blackwood, one of the most powerful billionaires in the country, learned the most brutal truth of all. Wealth can buy reach. It can buy speed. It can buy obedience. But it cannot buy certainty. And it cannot buy back time when fear takes hold. Ethan Blackwood was not a man who panicked. Panic was for people without plans. He had built his empire from nothing, sleeping in his car at 17, eating out of gas station microwaves, working until his hands shook. Control had been his religion. Precision, his comfort. He scheduled meetings down to the minute, emotions down to the second, and weakness never made the calendar. Until that night. Emergency alerts screamed across his phone. Visibility warnings. Road closures. Black ice reports. He barely noticed, until the call came. The twins. Noah and Lucas. 7 years old. Identical smiles. Identical laughter. Identical stubborn streaks that reminded him too much of himself. They had been riding home with their nanny when the car slid on black ice and kissed a guardrail. The accident itself was small. No serious damage. No injuries. But storms don't care about technicalities. Sirens screamed. Snow blinded. Doors opened. Panic took over. And somewhere in the confusion, 2 frightened boys ran. By the time police reached the scene, the storm had erased everything. Tire marks. Footprints. Direction. Gone. For the first time since Ethan was a poor teenager sleeping in his car, his chest tightened with something unfamiliar. Real fear. Not the calculated fear of markets crashing. Not the controlled fear of negotiations failing. But the kind that sits heavy in your lungs and refuses to leave. He mobilized everything. Police departments. Private security. Thermal drones. Search dogs. Helicopters grounded by weather but fueled and waiting. His name unlocked doors that never opened for others. His money turned suggestions into immediate action. But the storm didn't care who he was. Hours passed. Then more. Then came the silence, the worst sound of all. At dawn, exhausted officers gathered him gently, carefully choosing their words. Hypothermia timelines. Exposure risks. Survival odds shrinking by the hour. Ethan felt his knees weaken. No, he said. One word. Flat. Absolute. He refused to accept it. He drove himself through empty streets, windshield wipers fighting the relentless snow. Every traffic light blinked uselessly. The city looked abandoned, like the world had paused just to watch him suffer. Memories he had postponed began attacking him. The twins laughing at the breakfast table while he took calls. Their voices asking, "Dad, can you stay a little longer?" Their faces falling when business always won. He had told himself there would be time later. Later was now screaming at him from the snow. Guilt wrapped tighter than the cold. Then, without knowing why, he pulled over. A small roadside diner glowed ahead, warm yellow light spilling onto the white-covered asphalt like a promise. The sign flickered. The windows were fogged. It looked insignificant. Forgettable. Yet something inside him stopped. Maybe instinct. Maybe desperation. Maybe grace. He stepped out of the car. And froze. Through the fogged glass, Ethan saw 2 small figures sitting in a red leather booth. Winter jackets still zipped. Mittens set beside steaming bowls of soup. Their shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Their faces flushed from cold and relief. His mind rejected it immediately. Grief hallucination, he told himself. Then one boy turned his head. There, just above the eyebrow, was Noah's scar. The tiny one from when he'd fallen off his bike 2 summers ago. Ethan forgot how to breathe. He pushed the diner door open. The bell chimed sharply. Warmth rushed over him, but he didn't feel it. His legs barely worked. Tears blurred his vision. A young waitress stood beside the table, speaking softly to the boys, her posture protective. She noticed Ethan and turned, concern flickering across her face. Then Lucas looked up. "Dad," he whispered. The sound shattered him. Ethan dropped to his knees on the checkered floor, pulling both boys into his arms. He sobbed openly, no control, no dignity, no restraint, as the storm howled uselessly outside. The diner fell silent. The waitress wiped her eyes as she explained. She had been closing up when she spotted 2 small figures wandering near the highway, confused, frozen, terrified. She couldn't leave them. Couldn't turn them away. She brought them inside, gave them soup, wrapped them in blankets, and stayed. Ethan listened, holding his sons like they might disappear again. He tried to press money into her hands, more than she probably earned in months. She shook her head. "They needed help," she said quietly. "That's all." Ethan knew that wasn't all. As he left the diner, sons wrapped inside his coat, the snow finally began to slow, as if the storm itself had decided it had taken enough. The next morning, headlines exploded. Billionaire's lost sons found alive in miracle rescue. But the real miracle never made the news. Ethan changed. Not publicly. Not performatively. Quietly. He restructured his company. Delegated power. Declined meetings. He funded shelters, emergency response units, and small community diners across the city, always anonymous. Always remembering a red leather booth and 2 bowls of soup. Most importantly, he came home early. Years later, when Noah and Lucas asked why he never missed a school play or a snowy evening at home, Ethan would smile and say, "Because once, I almost lost you to the cold. And I promised myself I'd never be too busy to love you again." And that promise, unlike money, was priceless. If this story moved you, reminded you of what truly matters, or made you feel something real, consider subscribing. Stories like these aren't just entertainment. They're reminders of who we are. And who we should never forget to be.